Welcome to Adapter Parish, episode 82. But before we get into the Manchurian Candidate, let's talk about our next episode. So we've been looking at deceit an awful lot lately with our, last episode's look at Christmas in Connecticut and this episode's look at the Manchurian Candidate. But rather than jump away from it right away with our next episode, we thought we'd ease out of it with deceit that's really family friendly. So in our next episode, we're taking a look at The Parent Trap. We'll be discussing Eric Kastner's original 1949 novel Lottie and Lisa, the 1961 Disney adaptation starring Haley Mills, and the 1998 remake starring Lindsay Lohan. That's in 2 weeks on Tuesday, January 12th. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapter Parish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, Episode 82, The Manchurian Candidate. Hello and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw. And today we are going to talk about some batshit fuckery and relate it to the present day.
I mean, yeah, it kind of easily related. It kind of relates itself to the present day.
Yeah.
I don't think it's I think it's a pretty light lift.
It's not a big stretch.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
It's not. This isn't a TED Talk.
No.
That's not what this is.
It's not a hot take.
This isn't us saying, hey, we got to dig into this a little bit. This isn't us like Manchurian Candidate style with like all the shit on the walls, like the newspaper articles with all of
the red
string.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much on the cover of the book that it's like, this is also about the present day, just so you know. Like, that's basically
written in 1950 something.
This is a book about a time when shit was fucked. Did you know that shit continues to be fucked?
It turns out.
It kind of hits you over the head with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing the Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah.
Which I feel like has been on our list for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Quick for our audience, what is your experience with the Manchurian Candidate? Book, movie?
None.
None?
Had not read nor seen. Heard of.
That's experience.
Yes. And I think I was the one that wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Because I was interested in it.
And I was down because I have experience with it.
Yeah.
I never read the book, but I've seen the original a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I saw the new one.
Yeah.
Like, I think I saw it in the theater.
I just had such high hopes for the book given our previous experience on this podcast with sort of novels written for a popular audience by old white dudes in the 50s and 60s and 70s who knew a lot about a particular subject. And I must say, it did not disappoint. I enjoyed this book immensely. It was terrible, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the read.
I think we'll get back to this.
Yeah.
But I do want to throw out there, I've been sitting on this book for a few days now.
Yeah.
And I knew you felt that way.
Yeah.
I think I disagree.
You disagree that it was enjoyable?
No, I disagree that it's terrible.
Sweetie, the writing is bat shit.
But I think it's on purpose.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think. Let's hold off for a second.
Yeah.
We'll hold off.
I will say parts of it reminded me of Catch-22. Like, I think there were parts where the author was ironically aware of how over the top he was being, but there was so much.
Like, it is both like biting satire, but also a product of its time and maybe not as good as the author thinks it is. Can it be both of those things at the same time?
Let me put it this way. We read a book where a guy knew a lot about sharks. We read a book where a guy knew a lot about the mafia.
Yep.
Read a book where a guy knew a lot about subways.
Yeah.
Read a book where a guy knew a lot about submarines.
Yes.
This guy knows a lot about the Congressional Medal of Honor and the Army. We learned.
It seems to me that his knowledge of the Congressional Medal of Honor and the Army, I actually think maybe he didn't know as much about it. I think I think he probably did the same amount of research we did. All right, well, hang on for a second. I gotta go back because we're getting way ahead of ourselves, and I want to talk about all of these things. But I think we need to do a back of the book because I would hazard honestly that most people have heard of the Manchurian Candidate, and that's a term I think a lot of people are familiar with. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think a lot of people have seen these movies?
I think a lot of people have seen the 1962 movie. I think that's probably the one that people are most likely to have seen. Because I mentioned it the other day to somebody, and they were like, "Oh yeah, everybody knows that movie."
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Like it was a big movie.
yeah,
But do you mind if I do a back of the book?
I do not.
Sergeant Raymond Shaw is a hero of the First Order. He's an ex-prisoner of war who saved the life of his entire outfit, a winner of the Congressional Medal of Honor, the stepson of an influential senator, and the perfect assassin.
Dun, dun, dun.
Brainwashed during his time as a POW, he is a, quote, sleeper, a living weapon to be triggered by a secret signal. He will act without question, no matter what order he is made to carry out. To stop Shaw, his former commanding officer must uncover the truth behind a twisted conspiracy of torture, betrayal, and power that will lead both to the highest levels of the government and to Shaw's own past.
Dun, dun, dun.
I feel like that's a good back of the book.
It is a good back of the book. I mean, I guess technically he wasn't really a POW.
No, he was.
I mean, for like 3 days.
Okay. He's
He
still a
wasn't-
POW.
I feel like
People
feel
didn't
like
know he was a POW.
that's kind of what I'm saying. I feel like a POW is like a designation, and he's not officially a POW because nobody knew they had been captured.
I don't think. Well, I certainly don't know enough about it to say whether you're right or wrong.
I guess I could be wrong.
I didn't think that POW was like yes, I'm sure there is an official designation, but I didn't think it was one of those things where it's like, well, you're not a POW if you haven't been labeled a POW. That's what I've always felt.
Did you know John McCain was a POW for like 4 years?
Yeah.
Like I knew he was a POW, but I didn't realize the length of time involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People talk about John McCain being a POW a lot.
Yeah, but I guess I didn't understand.
Our president said some shit about it.
Yeah, well, fuck that guy.
Yeah, I know. Fuck that guy, obviously. But like Trump is going to come up again in this episode, so I'm just cracking the seal on that one.
Did you also know that John McCain left official instructions that Trump was not invited to his funeral?
Sure did.
It's great.
Sure did.
It's great. You can admire a man more after he's dead for just like the good stuff, and probably there were many issues on which we would have disagreed. I would imagine.
Yes.
Myself and John McCain.
Quite a few.
Yes.
God, that's a whole other episode.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down that path.
Okay.
We're going to go down that path enough in this episode.
All right. I'm sorry.
Because this is like, I mean, I joked about it in the intro to the previous episode that like we were doing this, that like, hey, for everyone who feels like, oh, the election's finally over and we can put this stuff behind us and not think about politics, like, surprise, we're doing the Manchurian Candidate. Like, I didn't even expect this to be as political as it was.
Yeah. Or as prescient.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. We'll talk about it. Let's do the book. Let's do the plot.
So this book was written it was released in 1959 by a guy named Richard Condon, who this was, I think this was his first novel, but he ended up writing many, many novels, and he was a publicist for a long time. Just a guy who like he wanted to be a writer. That was his big thing. It's just I gotta be a writer. And this is where I think we're maybe gonna disagree, because we're gonna start talking about this book.
Okay.
And we already kind of got into it a little bit. I am of the mind now that this is a very good book, that is very well written, that is by someone who is trying to find their voice, and maybe they didn't perfectly capture their own voice.
Okay.
I think sometimes they go a little off the rails,
Okay.
and sometimes maybe don't go far enough. I don't know that it's the most consistent novel I've ever read.
Okay.
But for a first novel, I think that's okay.
Okay.
But
Counterpoint.
no, that's fine. That's fine. Fucking bring it. That's totally fine.
Counterpoint. Okay. So I got to set something up here.
Yeah.
Our hero, well, not our hero, our one of the main characters.
Like you think Shaw is the
You think
hero.
Shaw is the hero.
You meet him first.
Yeah, he is the Manchurian Candidate. Let's call him this. Our title character.
Yeah.
Raymond Shaw. We meet him. So, okay. So I started reading this book like a week or two before Jeremy started it. And at one point I turned to him because he had seen both movies and I hadn't seen either movie, but I was way ahead of him in the book. So at one point I turned to him and I was like, these movies, there's a lot of sex in them, is there? And he was like, no, there's like no sex. What are you talking about? I was like, oh, because there's so much sex in this book. So much. So much talk of sex, not as much doing of sex, I guess, but there is this extended sequence talking about okay, so there's Raymond Shaw and then his former commander, Ben Marco. And they lived together in New York City for a while before most of the plot kind of gets going. And there's this extended sequence about the orgies that Ben has every single night and how every single night he brings home between 2 and 6 women that he just meets on the street that day and what they do. And it goes on and on and on for pages and pages. And the other thing,
Can I do a reading?
yes,
The women, this is, I put this under a thing of misogyny because there is definitely some misogyny in this book, but I think it's on purpose, and I think it's playing with people's expectations a little bit.
Okay.
But the women were all sizes and colors, sharing with each other only Marco's requisite of a good disposition, and he rarely hesitated to hand out a black eye if this rule were violated.
There you go. But the other thing, and this is a major plot point, is okay, as we all know, as everyone knows, there is a deception where the unit gets taken prisoner. They're POWs, as Jeremy pointed out.
Do you know what we haven't said yet?
What?
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
We're going to spoil everything forever. If you have never read or seen any of these, like, go back and watch the 1962 movie and then come back and join us.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, welcome back.
Okay. The unit is taken capture. They are subjected to this brand new form of brainwashing, which is a joint effort between the Chinese and the Russians. And there are scientists and like high-ranking generals from both sides, but the main
Well, it's one side.
From the Russians. And so it's the Chinese scientists
from the communists.
Yeah, the communists. So it's the Chinese scientists and like working with the Russian scientists, and all their generals are there.
Yeah.
And the main scientist is this guy named Yen Lo. That's his name? Okay. Basically, he has all of these men think that they're at a garden party when actually they're being exhibited to all of these Chinese and Russian diplomats. And he essentially says, people think that under hypnosis, you can't be made to do anything that is against your moral code. That is wrong, and I'm going to show you a demonstration. And basically, he has Raymond Shaw kill 2 of his party. He smothers one of them or strangles one of them and shoots the other one. And then he implants this memory in all of their heads that they were on a mission and Raymond Shaw saved all of their lives except these 2 who he tragically was unable to save, but they were killed in the line of duty. And he needs to be nominated for the Congressional Medal of Honor because of this extraordinary act of heroism. He implants that all in their minds and in Ben Marco's mind particularly. And they choose Raymond because he is particularly like a good candidate for this because he's very like emotionless and terrible, and nobody really likes him, and he's weird, probably because of his frigid mother. We later find out.
Frigid is like the least of the. There's so much going on.
So
with
many.
her.
Okay, so his mother is Mallory Archer. Like his mother is Mallory Archer. There is no getting around it. It was the only person I could picture in my head the entire time. If you watch Archer and you just think of Sterling and Mallory, these are these characters.
She's just younger.
Yeah.
Like a very much younger version of Mallory.
Yes. But the thing that happens in the book that they, for some reason, I have no idea why, chose not to represent in either of the films, but is actually kind of an important plot point, is that Yen Lo says to Raymond, as I'm instructing you with all of these like false memories and all of this, I'm also going to do you a favor.
Yeah.
Because I see that you're sexually repressed and I'm going to take that away from you. I'm going to whisper in your ear the secrets of the joys of sexuality. And from here on in, you will be interested in sex. And that is my gift to you.
I would like to enter into evidence.
Exhibit B.
Exhibit B, if you will. And this is evidence that I feel shows that this book is funny and is satire, even though it is, kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But I think this to me feels very intentional.
Go for it.
So there's a whole section where the author's talking about Raymond meeting sex workers. And let me read this. He basically is trying to find these women. Raymond had found the retail outlet with efficiency. This is
the brothel.
This is the brothel. He works at a paper as well. This is important to say. There's a lot of exposition that's necessary.
Well, I just did like 10 minutes of exposition
Yeah.
just to read the quote that I want to read. So you go ahead.
He had told the Broadway columnist on the paper that he would appreciate it greatly if one of the press agents with whom the columnist did business would secure him maximum for minimum accommodations atop some well-disposed, handsome professional woman. Had he known that this ritual and the attendant expense were the direct result of the release conferred on him by Yen Lo in Tonghua, he would have resented it, because although the money meant little to him, and although he enjoyed the well-disposed, handsome professional women very much, he would just as well have preferred to have remained in the psychological position of ignoring it, because it meant getting to bed on the evenings he was with her much later than he preferred to retire, and it most certainly had cut into his reading.
No, that's very funny.
I think that's
very
great.
funny. But like, I feel like at the same time, the style is so like that was one sentence.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay, so
It
let
was
me.
like 2 sentences.
Okay,
But
so,
your point stands.
So counterpoint. This is insanity.
This is, you're about to read, I believe, the best quote in the book.
And this was really early in the book too. This is in the first like 4 chapters, I think.
Yeah. I think it's in the first 4 pages.
Yeah. So the only other thing you need to know about Raymond is that he had this failed romance earlier in his life with a girl named Josie Jordan, who's the daughter of a senator who is his mother's political enemy. And he is currently, as we speak, as this quote is happening, boning a lady. The thought of Josie lying before him like this lovely moaning girl excited him, as though a chemical abrasive had been poured into his urethra, and she was assaulted by him in the most attritive manner, to her greater glory and with her effulgent consent. And though she lived to be an old woman, she never forgot that morning, and could summon it back to her in its richest violence whenever she was frightened and alone. Never knowing that she was not only the first woman Raymond had ever possessed, but the first he had ever kissed in passion, or that he had been given his start toward relaxing his inhibitions against the uses of sex not quite 1 year before in Manchuria. That was one sentence.
It's amazing.
That was one sentence.
I
The whole book is like this.
I just imagine Richard Condon sitting at his typewriter cackling as he's writing this.
A chemical abrasive. Can you think of anything less sexy? And now I grant you that you are maybe not supposed to find it sexy. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like the idea of there could be nothing less sexy than a chemical abrasive being poured into your urethra, unless that's your thing. I don't want to yuck anybody's yum, but that sounds terrible and is not sexy.
I really mean it. Like, I'm not kidding when I say he's cackling, because I look at, like, let's talk about Jaws for a second.
Yeah.
Peter Benchley's writing this book, which we've talked about at length. If you haven't listened to it, you should. We just reran it. Peter Benchley, it is very clear that he is sitting at the typewriter going like, I need to be writerly. I am a writer.
Yes.
And I am going to write the way a writer writes. I am going to use the best words and to craft the best sentences to tell my story of death in a small town.
Yeah.
Richard,
you think he's having more fun?
I think he's having so much more fun than that.
I think that's fair.
I think every bit of this is intentional. I'm not saying it's all successful, but I do think it's intentional. I think he is trying to describe, I bet he's sitting there going like, well, I need to describe a guy boning down for the first time, but like, I want to make it funny.
Yeah.
So how do I do that? Well, I
Yeah.
could either make it a joke or I could make it so fucking serious that it could only be taken as a joke.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he was aiming for.
Okay.
I think he hit it.
Okay. I think we've given a pretty good picture of Raymond Shaw's character.
Yeah.
We need to talk about some other characters.
Mhm.
We need to talk about his mama.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So his mother is a very ambitious woman in the way that women could be ambitious in the 50s, which is to say she's ambitious for her husband. This is her second husband. She left Raymond's father, her first husband, in a whole situation that is described in great detail of her betrayals and infidelities. And also there's an incest plot with her and her father. So again, like there's a lot of backstory, and some of it, while all of it is fun, I would argue why.
What does it have to do with the shark?
What does it have to do with the shark? Like, why is she? The whole flowers in the attic scene with her and her dad? I didn't need to know that. I don't think it informed her character at all.
But it informs later when she bones down with Raymond. It's implied that they bone down.
I mean, they clearly bone down, but like, why is any of that necessary?
I mean, the way he presents it is they go to bone down, but
Yeah.
he doesn't describe it as actually happening.
No, because it's the 50s.
Right.
Why is any of that necessary? It was very strange.
I mean, I would go a step further because then, I mean, we'll talk about Johnny in a second.
Yeah.
Like the guy she ends up marrying.
Yeah,
but
that's
like,
what I was going to talk about next.
we hear about all of his sexual past. Like, we hear about so many times that he had sex.
Yeah,
like
he had sex with a Inuit woman, like, and it's described in very racist terms, like in Greenland. Remember that?
But it's described, just to be clear to the audience, like it is described in racist terms because it's coming from Johnny.
Yeah.
It's the way he would describe it.
Yeah,
like he's a terrible person.
Yes.
Like I'll just plant this seed right now. I was starting to get the impression through this book that this book was like a kind of a conservative book, kind of a right-wing book.
Yeah.
And I got over that pretty fast because people who are conservative and right-wing are the worst people in this book.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are presented in the worst light.
Yes. Although everyone's presented in a pretty bad light.
Well, and everyone's kind of on that side of the spectrum.
Fair enough.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So she's currently married to this guy named Johnny Iceland, who is a senator. And she has great ambitions for him and a whole plot involving like the national convention. And by the way, it never explicitly states who's in what party.
It's clear they're Republican.
They're clearly
though.
Republicans. Well, because there's a whole like McCarthy thing. So like she's setting him up to be the senator that is accusing people in the government of being communists, and this other Senator Jordan, who's Josie's father, is of the same party, and he's saying he's basically like the Mitt Romney of the situation, right? He's like, this is nonsense. Does that make sense?
It does. If we're gonna start comparing to modern politicians, are we talking about Johnny yet? Or
no, I'm talking about Johnny.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I read what I think is the most important passage in this book?
Yeah.
As far as how prescient it is and how timely it is.
Yes.
For our current climate.
Absolutely, you can. But I just do want to point out that the only times in 80 some odd episodes that we've ever done readings, especially so many readings, is when we found the writing to be insane.
Yeah. I think this is great.
So here we go.
I've come around. I'm a fan of this book. I think this is a great book. So, as you say, Iceland is kind of a McCarthy, and accusations of communism are thrown around constantly. And it's very clear too that like he's full of shit. Like when he calls people a communist, like he knows there are so many communists in the Defense Department, and the number he throws out constantly changes.
Yeah.
Because he's just doing what she's telling him to do.
Yeah.
And he can't keep it straight. So this is something the author is in his story attributing to a political analyst within the reality of the story. So one of the most astute political analysts of the national scene wrote, quote, Icelandism has developed a process for compounding a lie, then squaring it, which is a modern miracle of dishonesty far exceeding the claims of filter cigarettes. Iceland's lies seem to have atomic motors within them, tiny reactors of such power and such complexity as to confound and baffle all with direct and even slightly honest turns of mind. He has bellowed out so many accusations about so many different people, and for all the public knows, these names he brandishes may have been attached to people of entirely questionable existence, that no one can keep the records of these horrendous charges straight. Iceland is a man who shall forever stand guard at the door of the mind to protect the people of this great nation from facts.
Well, thank God he didn't have Twitter.
Yeah, right? This isn't one of those things where, oh no, both sides are saying the other side's full of shit. Like, there is one person that this is currently referring to. And Condon had no idea. But I think I'll only get on my soapbox for 30 seconds and then I'll step right back down, I promise. But I do think that a mistake I have fallen into, and I think a lot of people are making, are thinking that someone like Trump is unique in some way.
Yeah.
Like, there are many like Trump.
Yeah.
He happens to be the most popular of those type of people, but like, he's a bullshit artist. And politics is, especially the current GOP, is full of bullshit artists. And I think it's important to get some perspective and remember this is a thing we've been dealing with forever and will continue to deal with. And just because Trump isn't the president anymore doesn't mean it's a thing we don't have to worry about.
Sure. And but
I'm down off my soapbox.
That's fine. And I have like kind of two things to say. Like, one is the line in the movie. I don't remember if this was in the book or if it was just the 62 movie, but they were talking about this, like this, that he couldn't keep the number of senators or the number of people in the Defense Department, number of communists straight. Like it was always a different number. And he was like, why can't you just give me like a single number? And Angela Lansbury is like, yes, but you'll notice that the conversation is not, are there communists in the Defense Department? The question now is how many, because your number keeps changing. And like my little brain just went, pew! Like I was like, oh, because I feel like the impulse in me throughout the last like however many months and years of the political conversation is like, why are you telling these lies? Like, what? These are obvious lies. Why are you telling lies? And it's kind of like what you just said, which is like, you're going to tell so many lies so quickly that contradict each other so much that the conversation is now not on whether or not something is a lie, but like how the different lies are contradicting each other, but you're still having a conversation about the lies.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of the classic loaded question, because anytime people talk about the concept of the loaded question, the one that I always hear is, have you stopped beating your wife?
Right.
Like, I think we've all heard something like that at some point. And that's the perfect thing, because if you respond, it's almost impossible to respond to that in a way that doesn't lead credence to the basic assertion, which is that you were doing the terrible thing, even if it's not true.
Right. The other thing that I was just going to say, again, and this is, again, kind of specific to the movie, but in general, we were sitting watching the movie and all of this stuff was kind of playing out. And I turned to you and I was like, I feel like this could go either way, but does the fact that this is so parallel to the time we're living in now, like so exact, and this is from the late 50s, early 60s, like, does that depress you or does that feel a little bit comforting? And you kind of said, I don't know, it depresses me. And I said, I understand that and I can see how anyone would feel that way, but I feel like it kind of brings me a little bit of comfort just to know, like, things have always been the same. As you just pointed out, like, Trump is not the first person to be an effulgent liar, and yet the world continues to spin. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is so many years ago now. I feel like, all the stuff with like the Cuban Missile Crisis and everything, like there were times in the 60s that the world kind of came close to ending. And I feel like there have been times more recently that the world has kind of come close to ending, but like it didn't. I don't know. I feel like you could take it one of two ways. It could be depressing or it could be comforting. And it struck me as a little bit comforting.
The only thing comforting about it is the idea, because I am pretty depressed about it, but the only thing that's comforting to me about it is that we fucking know what it is. We know it. We've identified it. This has been identified decades ago. The problem isn't we can't figure out how they're doing it.
Yeah.
The problem is, how do we align and how do we fight it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question.
Yeah.
We don't need to figure out how it's happening. It's not like people look at Trump and go, what is so insidious about him? It's like, no, he's a bullshit artist. Everything that comes out of his mouth is a lie. And that's its own problem, because when someone only lies, you're not attacking single lies, you're attacking a phalanx of lies.
Yeah.
And that's an entirely different thing to do. And it's something that Condon, I think, writes about beautifully in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you talk about Catch-22. This has now become, I think, one of my favorite things that I've read in terms of like political satire.
Yeah.
Because I just think it calls it out so clearly and so perfectly.
Yeah.
I dug it.
We could go on about this all night, but I'm going to draw a bright line and say we have now finished talking about the relationship of this book written in 1959 to current politics of today.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think we got to wrap up the book too.
Okay.
And there's a lot of plot to get through. Do you mind if I try something?
Go for it.
Can I just describe what the plan is? What the evil plot is?
Yeah. There's an evil plot.
There's an evil plot, and then there's the people working to stop the evil plot.
Okay, do the evil plot.
Okay, so the evil plot is the Soviet Union has realized we can take over the United States from within if we implant a sleeper who is an assassin. The kind of thing we've seen for a really long time. But we need to find the perfect person, and we need to work with the right person on the inside. And it's constantly referred to throughout the book that Raymond has an American handler.
Yeah.
And everyone else that he works with, who has helped me brainwashing him, Yenlo, all the generals, everyone like that, they all have names, but his American handler is never named. So it's very clear from a modern context that it's going to be someone we know.
Yeah.
And you find out that his American handler is his mother.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it's really fun how you find out and everything like that. And her big plan is she has been we're coming up on like the Republican National Convention, figuring out who's going to be the candidate for president. What she's been doing is she has been going through all these machinations to make sure that her husband, Johnny, becomes the vice presidential candidate.
Yeah.
She knows that she doesn't have the political muscle to make him the presidential candidate, but she can make him the vice presidential candidate. And what they're going to do is they're going to have Raymond, during the acceptance speech of the presidential candidate, he's going to shoot the candidate.
Yes.
And he's also going to shoot Johnny, like in the shoulder.
Yeah.
But Johnny's going to survive.
And make a wonderful speech,
Yep.
and then he will be the president.
Exactly. That's everything they're building towards. That is the evil plot. But the thing they didn't count on is Ben Marco.
Okay, so Ben Marco, as we've mentioned before, was the commander of this unit that all got brainwashed. And he has been having these weird dreams. And it's the same dream every night. And in the dream, Raymond Shaw, who he knows to be this great, wonderful, sweet, perfect man.
Like, you literally recommended him for the Medal of Honor.
Yeah. Shoots and strangles 2 members of his unit. And he thinks he's just crazy. Like, he is in a bad way. And he gets a letter from another guy in his unit. Or no, Raymond gets a letter from the other guy in the unit who's having the same dreams. And he relays that information to Marco. So Marco knows there's 2 of them. So he's got this thing like gnawing at the back of his mind. Like, I think this might be real, this thing that happened. And he also meets this girl on a train who is like interested in helping him because he's sort of very magnetic and attractive
and damaged.
And that's really like the only information we have about her. She's just kind of like a helpful person, and they kind of fall in love.
And she immediately leaves. The day she meets him, she leaves her fiance.
Yes.
To because she's like, he's interesting.
Yes.
Her fiance, by the way, turns out, is he FBI?
FBI.
Yeah. Turns out he becomes one of the team that Marco ends up helping put together.
Yeah.
To figure out how they can stop whatever this plot is.
Yeah, through a series of events, they realize that Marco has been programmed with a trigger phrase, which is, and I'm sorry for any of you that have been programmed with this phrase out there in the audience, because I'm about to say it. Why don't you pass the time by playing a little solitaire? And the way that they realize this is really funny because he gets like accidentally triggered in a bar.
Like, the brainwashing stuff is fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's a point where he like literally, someone accidentally triggers him and says in jest, and I just said to him, go jump in a lake. And he goes and jumps in the lake. And he's like, okay, something's wrong here.
Because so the trigger to start the process is, why don't you pass the time by playing some solitaire?
Yeah.
The trigger is the Queen of Diamonds.
The Queen of Diamonds. Yes, that's right.
So he has to play through the deck, and once he hits the Queen of Diamonds, now he is ready for his instructions.
Yes. So the Marco figures this out immediately. He's working with this team of like FBI and CIA and like whoever to try to figure this out. And in the meantime, like maintaining his close relationship with Raymond. And Raymond like kind of doesn't believe him that this is happening, and then he finally does. And Ben has been like walking around with like a what they call a force deck, like a deck with just Queen of Diamonds in his pocket, like for months, like just in case he gets the opportunity to talk to Raymond. In the meantime, Raymond runs off and marries Josie, who's back from South America, and a very tragic thing happens. Which
it's
is
like the saddest thing I've ever read.
So sad, which is that his mother instructs him to kill Senator Jordan, Josie's father. And he's also been programmed like way in the past that if anybody were to interrupt him in the commission of a murder, he has to kill them too. So there's this whole plot where it's like all arranged. He's like in a van and he goes to the Jordan's house and he shoots Senator Jordan, and Josie walks in on them and he shoots her too, who he just married like the day before. And it's so sad because it's like the thing that it reminded me of was like a dog that's done something wrong, and a dog can't remember that they've done something wrong, but they know that you're mad at them. And that's what it just made me think of. Like, he was just so sad afterwards, but like couldn't talk. He was still under this like mind control because he hadn't been released from the spell yet, and like it was affecting him emotionally even though he didn't know what he had done. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it was very, very, very sad. I can't think of like a sadder situation.
This book really runs the gamut because parts of it are really, really funny.
Yeah, but this was
then he
terrible.
throws something at you like this, which is just awful.
It was terrible. And so Ben manages to find him. He's in a terrible way, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna I know you have an instruction for something that you're going to do at this convention, but you're going to do my thing instead. And what ends up happening is that Raymond goes to the convention. He's a sharpshooter. He's got his rifle and everything that his mother has provided him with. But instead of shooting the presidential nominee, he shoots Iceland, he shoots his mother, and then he shoots himself. And that is the end of the book.
Yep. And it is strongly implied. You're basically, it's not subtext, it's text. Like, it's basically implied that Marco, because you as an audience don't know what he told Raymond to do.
That's right.
Until after it happens. But then it is strongly implied by the author that Marco didn't want Raymond to go through whatever court-martial, whatever like that. So he's like, no. You
gotta take.
He also
you have
knows
nothing left to live for.
He killed his beautiful new wife.
Yeah.
He's like, this guy has nothing to live for, and I'm going to put him out of his misery.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the book.
Yeah.
It's
really sad.
It's really sad, but like the book's it's a corker. It's really fun, and the brainwashing stuff is fantastic. It's really funny. It is still a product of its time, so I don't want to wholeheartedly recommend it.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of good in this book.
Oh yeah, we didn't really talk about the sort of racist depiction of his
Chunjin?
Korean manservant Chunjin.
The Chunjin stuff is really it's really good. So Marco, there's like a whole action scene where Marco, in his dream, like Chunjin was their guide in Korea.
Yeah, and their translator.
Yeah, and he's the one that got them ambushed, and he's definitely in the dream as part of the machinations. So, but Marco hasn't seen him since Korea, and he goes to Raymond's apartment, and in the meantime, Chunjin has been ordered to go to the United States and offer his services up to Raymond as his valet,
his house
basically.
Man. Yeah,
he's basically, getting back to Archer, he's basically his Woodhouse,
right,
at this point. And it's just this great scene where like Marco opens the door and there's Chunjin, and he's like, oh, holy shit.
And he beats the shit out of him.
And he just beats the shit out of him. And I had 2 quotes really quickly about this that I loved. So at the end of the fight, in the apartment building, it says this: he was pounding the back of Chunjin's head into the floor and asking him a series of what he thought were deliberative questions when the youngest squad car cop came into the room first and fast, hitting him behind the head with a sap, and the entire wonderful opportunity passed. It's just so many different things going on.
So many things going on.
So funny. But then later, he's talking to Raymond because Raymond doesn't know that all of this has happened. So he goes back to the apartment, and this is the quote: Raymond opened the door. Chunjin isn't here, he said. There's no dinner to offer you. And Ben says, or you. And Raymond says, but I did find a note. It's from him, and it says you beat him up and that he's now in St. Luke's hospital. And Raymond is just like kind of nonplussed by the whole thing.
Yeah.
He's not like, how could you do this? He's more like, I heard you beat up Chunjin.
My friend,
Yeah.
Chunjin.
He's not my friend. He works for me.
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal with that? But anyway, that's not important.
Yeah. I will say, like, before we move on to the movies, because this is pretty consistent. The female character, okay. So the character of the mother is like, she's like a sexual neurotic. It's like this very subversive desire that she has because she desired her father, and then she desired an older man who was Raymond's father, and then she married someone who was like closer to her age but like weak. Like, she just has it's all about like weird twisted sex for her. And also she's a bad mother.
But I don't think she's underwritten.
No, she's not underwritten, but I'm saying like this is actually kind of a trope of this, like,
Yes.
this evil mother, older woman who has a sort of twisted sexual stuff going on.
But my question would be, how
Yeah.
much is Condon using the trope to tell the satire he wants to tell?
I'm not saying he's not aware
no.
of the trope. I'm just saying, like, you're right, she's not underwritten, but I'm just sort of introducing who the female characters are.
Yeah.
Then there's Josie, who's just a perfect angel. And that's really all that we know about Josie. She is there. She is what's the thing in the comics?
Fridging?
She's fridged. She's a refrigerator girl.
Can I give a quick
Yes.
background on that?
Yeah.
So there is a trope within like American superhero comics that are primarily written by men.
For men.
For men, which has its own problems. There was basically an issue of a Green Lantern comic back in the 90s where this guy has just become the Green Lantern, and it's like in the first couple issues of his arc as the superhero, and he goes back to his house and he opens the fridge, and it turns out that the villain has killed his girlfriend and has stuffed her in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And it's this giant shocking moment that like anyone who was a fan of American superhero comics in the 90s, and especially DC Comics, would remember.
Yes.
But like there are a number of current writers who I'm forgetting their names, and I feel really bad about that, but I will link to like the website. But basically this became a term called fridging, and it is really, really fucking consistent in these stories. And it's just that general idea of like the hero the woman dies to motivate the hero.
Yes. Yeah. She serves no purpose other than to die, and therefore he gets to become his fullest self.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, which kind of happens in the book.
Kind of.
Like the thing that gets him to talk to Marco
Yeah.
and finally like bring about the conclusion of the story is that Josie dies.
Like that was her purpose. Like that's what she was in the story for.
Yeah.
And then the character of Eugenie, who is Ben's Rosie, is again just this weird situation. I guess it's just to illustrate what an interesting and magnetic person Ben Marco is, which we already knew because he like attracts these women in off the street, like of, as you pointed out, all shapes, all sizes, all colors, and is just deathly attracted to him on the train.
Yeah.
But like, and then the source of him being able to meet this FBI guy who's her former fiance, which is very strange.
Well, that's funny.
Yeah.
Like that serves a joke.
Yeah. But just as a character, I would not say she's like a full person.
I think she's the weakest character. Not only is she the weakest character, I think her subplot is the weakest subplot. Like it has the least to do with the plot of anything.
Yes.
And if I was adapting it, she'd probably be the first thing that I would cut.
Yeah.
Which, here's the deal. I feel like the way to deal with Rosie is either cut her, which eliminates a woman from the story, which is not good.
Yeah.
Or rewrite her to make her more interesting.
Yeah.
And that's something that we can talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, and also like kind of not for nothing that the way that she is described is an sort of this Asian exoticization, because she's not like an ordinary regular American woman. Like her looks are very like she has dark skin and like dark hair,
dark skin and a big nose.
Yeah, and a big nose. Like, and he says to her like, "Are you Persian?" And she's like, "No," but we never really learn like what she is. But she's like, I think the implication is like she's Middle Eastern in some way.
Yeah.
But the way that she's described is very like exoticized.
Mm-hmm. But then in the movie, they cast
Hitchcock blonde.
Hitchcock blonde Janet Leigh.
Yeah.
And the line is still there.
Yeah.
It's super weird.
Yeah,
Do you want to talk about the movie?
Yeah, let's talk about the movie.
Okay. So in 1962, a movie was made about this. So this was directed by John Frankenheimer, who was like 31, something like that at the time. He went on to direct many movies, and he's a very popular director. He did Birdman of Alcatraz, 7 Days in May, Grand Prix, Ronin, the cool De Niro movie in the 90s. He was the guy who stepped in to direct The Island of Dr. Moreau in the 90s.
Well, thank God for that.
Which we're definitely going to do on this show at some point. Of course, we're going to do The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Okay.
I desperately want to.
Okay, this is the first I've heard of it.
Basically, the movie was made. The director got fired a week in, and John Frankenheimer stepped in and managed to shepherd this piece of crap to the theaters.
Got it.
But he died about 15 years ago or so. Written by George Axelrod, who also wrote the play and the movie of The 7-Year Itch, and he wrote the screenplay of Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Gotcha.
So maybe not like political intrigue, but satire definitely.
Sure.
In satire and comedy, I think he gets. And we get a whole bunch of cool people in this movie. Frank Sinatra as Ben Marco. Lawrence Harvey is Raymond Shaw. Can we go through and just give quick reactions to their casting?
Yeah.
Just quick. Frank Sinatra as Ben Marco.
I mean, it's very funny because again, like Ben Marco is supposed to be this like broad-chested all-American, and like Frank Sinatra, he has his own charms, but he's sort of like a tiny Italian man from New Jersey.
But weirdly was kind of a sex symbol.
Yeah, strangely enough.
Yeah. The big thing that I learned about it is that he certainly was not good after his first take. There's like one whole sequence in the movie with him, which is a really long take, which is really out of focus. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice.
When he's got the deck of Queen of Hearts at the end, he's completely out of focus.
Okay.
And Frankenheimer talked about it later, and this is one of my favorite things. He was talking about how critics ended up praising the scene for showing it from Shaw's distorted point of view. But he was just like, no, it was out of focus, and then we got in focus, but Sinatra was only good on the first take, so we ended up having to use it.
Oh, jeez.
Lawrence Harvey is Raymond Shaw.
Yeah. I didn't understand why he was British.
He's kind of, I don't know. I feel like he's got that very classical kind of New England, like upper class,
mid-Atlantic or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like it's not a consistent British accent.
Yeah.
It's just a very, because like Angela Lansbury talks like that too.
Kind of, but she is British.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
but also her British accent wasn't consistent through the entire
Sure.
thing. I thought they were doing that kind of mid-Atlantic thing.
Gotcha.
I was just gonna say, I think Lawrence Harvey's perfect.
Yeah, he's great.
Like, I think perfect cast.
The scene where they get drunk together, like on Christmas, is really, really funny. And he's like,
so good.
I hate my mother.
He's so good.
He's really
His
funny.
voice is incredible. He's so great. Janet Leigh as Rosie.
Again, very odd casting. Odd, because he literally says to her, "Are you Persian?" Why would you say to Janet Leigh, "Are you Persian?"
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's cool that this is like this is our second in a row where we're talking about one of Jamie Lee Curtis's parents.
There you go.
Which I think is neat.
Yeah, why not?
I think she's fine.
I mean, the character is nothing.
It's nothing.
So, like, you can be anything.
Like, I actually think it's less than nothing in this one because at least in the book, there's that funny subplot where like her ex is the guy on the FBI.
Yeah.
But this,
It doesn't
am
have
I
that.
misremembering it? Like, it doesn't have it at all.
No, it doesn't have it at all.
She just feels like a romantic lead for the need of a romantic lead.
Yes.
And I don't think it works.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the movie works, but like that doesn't work for me.
Agreed.
Angela Lansbury as Eleanor Island.
Well, you figured out a depressing fact about Angela Lansbury, which is that she in this movie is the age we are now.
Yes.
Yes.
No, she's younger than me.
She's the same age as me.
I think she was 36 when they shot
Okay.
this.
But she looks older, right?
She projects. You look younger than she looks in this movie.
I appreciate you saying that.
And
Because
I
I did specifically ask. I just, for full disclosure, I did specifically ask you. Jeremy the other day turned to me. I was feeling a little bit insecure, and he said, "Babe, you are turning into a beautiful middle-aged woman."
Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Shit. That's problematic.
I thought that might not be as comforting as I think you meant it to be.
I just want to be clear to everyone. I am assuming, I can't remember, so I can't defend myself, but I feel like there was context in the conversation that makes that not as bad a statement as it sounds now.
I'm not sure what it was.
I don't know either, but I bet there was.
I don't know.
I love you.
I love you too.
I think you're beautiful.
Do you think I'm turning into a beautiful middle-aged woman? Because
Well,
that's what you said.
That's a fucking trap.
Okay, let's keep going.
I found out a fun thing.
Yeah.
Sinatra produced this movie.
Mm-hmm.
His first choice for Eleanor Island,
Yeah.
Lucille Ball.
I can see it.
I can see it too. But Frankenheimer pushed for Lansbury because he had just worked with her in another movie.
Gotcha.
And apparently after the screen test, they agreed that
Yeah.
she was the best, even though she is 3 years older than Lawrence Harvey.
Yes. And as I pointed out while we were watching it, like, to be fair, she was supposed to have had Raymond when she was like 17. But as you pointed out, 3 years and 17 years is not the same.
3's a lot less than 17. I just ran the numbers really
but
quickly.
She is supposed to be a young mother for the age that he is.
And I think you pointed out, like, the way to interpret the problem isn't that she's not old enough. It's that Lawrence Harvey's a little too old.
He's
for
too
this.
old, yes.
Like, but it works.
Yeah,
like,
it's fine.
I think the important thing is that it works. If you think about it too much, it doesn't work, but I think it works.
Maggie Smith played Ian McKellen's mother in Richard III. She is younger than him.
Yeah. These things happen.
These things happen.
Estelle Getty played B. Arthur's mom.
She is also younger than B. Arthur.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, this is a normal thing that happens.
Yes. People just have age in different and interesting ways, and isn't everyone beautiful?
I'll run through a couple other people really quick.
'Kay.
James Gregory is Senator John Yerkes Island.
I mean, like, he's very good in this role.
I thought
think
he was so good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was funny. I mean, that was the thing I really liked about him is that he's really dangerous. Like, the things he's doing are awful and you hate him, but he's funny.
Yeah.
He's not menacing.
Yeah, and he like walked that interesting line of being like so different in public and in private. Like in private, and this they talk about this in the book too. That he's just kind of like a broad like guy. You know, he just like likes his meat and potatoes and having sex with Raymond's mom and like drinking whiskey. He's drunk. He likes to drink. But like the way that he acts in private and in public is different. And I think this actor did a good job in like doing that, but also being clear that they were like kind of two halves of the same person.
Yeah, it never felt like he was two different characters.
Yeah.
He was really, really strong in this.
Yeah.
But I want to I really want to put a pin in that, which is that I think his presence in the movie and the way they directed him leads more into this movie kind of going more towards the satirical side
Yeah.
because he's not just this menacing villain.
No, he's funny.
He is an antagonist, but he's funny.
And he's also dumb.
Yeah,
Like,
he's really stupid.
dumb. Yeah.
Henry Silva as Chun-Jin.
This was like I didn't take that many notes, but I wrote, this man is not Asian, even a little. But it's interesting because he has one of those faces that could kind of be anything.
Yeah.
So you can see
like Yul Brynner or something like that.
Yeah, although Yul Brynner is closer to being, Yul Brynner at least is from like Mongolia. Like Yul Brynner is from a country in Asia. This guy is Sicilian.
Yeah.
But like you can see looking at his face why he was cast in these sort of ethnically ambiguous roles. He has a very interesting face.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely see someone in the 60s, some producer saying, well, we certainly can't cast an actual Korean.
Right.
But
God forbid.
But who's a white guy who we can get who can pass?
Yeah.
They found who they thought could pass.
Yeah, and this guy's Henry Silva. Like he's been in a lot of stuff,
Oh, yeah.
and like he was kind of well known for playing this type of role. Like not like Asian stereotypes necessarily, but like quote ethnically ambiguous people.
Yeah. As of this recording, he's still alive, right? Is he like 90 something?
Yeah, he's like 90 something. Yeah, he's still alive. And so I guess like given that this is like technically yellow face, I feel like I can't pass any kind of reasonable judgment since it is bad to do. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I can't say that he was good in this role since he should never have played it.
I mean, I will go ahead and say he's not good in this role.
I don't think he is good in this role.
Like, I don't think Chun-Jin works in this. Like, there's multiple things about Chun-Jin that don't work in this movie. Like, the casting is batshit. There's also, I'm going to say this. I don't know. Maybe I'm going against what other people think. I don't know if I'm in agreement with most people or not. The fight scene between him and Frank Sinatra is one of the worst fight scenes I have ever seen. It is, God bless him, Frank Sinatra seems to be doing a lot of his own stunts in this scene, and he is not an action star.
Yeah.
You can tell there's something, I feel like I could make a list of like best runners and worst runners.
Yeah.
Like, I think history will show that the best runner in the history of like Western action movies is Tom Cruise.
Okay.
You can say a lot of other bad things about the guy, you know,
But he can
like
run.
he can fucking run in a movie. That is the thing that he can do really, really well. But then there are on the opposite end of the spectrum, you can point at people who can't run for shit. Like, I love Dustin Hoffman running in The Graduate. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Just like,
he's just like that, and his little hands are just kind of waving back and forth. And Frank Sinatra has that same kind of run. It's very kind of mincy. Like, there's just something about it. Like, he's just very his arms don't really seem to be pulling along with the rest of his body to help him run.
There was a guy that used to run in my neighborhood, and I would always watch him with joy because
you're standing here like a T-Rex.
Because he clearly, this was his running form, and he did not care what anybody thought. And this was the thing, like, God bless him. He was going out there and running every day. Like, I am not passing judgment on someone that's out there like running for their health every day. But like, okay, so imagine I'm standing like a T-Rex, right? Like my elbows are bent in front of me and my wrists are bent forward. Imagine that my elbows are locked to my sides and my wrists in this limp position are swinging wildly back and forth, and I'm running down the street with my arms swinging side to side, but my elbows locked at my sides. That's kind of what Frank Sinatra made me think of.
A little bit.
This guy that used to run in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure. It's your podcast.
Regarding the sort of racial makeup of this movie, despite the fact that there is yellow face in it, which is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I was actually, maybe I shouldn't have been as impressed as I was, and maybe that in itself is a statement of like how poorly movies tend to do representation, especially movies from this time. But there were black people in this movie who were characters and had lines who weren't black in the book. But that was how they cast the movie. And not only that, but like, I'm trying to think of how to describe this. Like, they translated, so Al Melvin, who's the other person who's having these bad dreams, they cast a black actor as this person. He's like the one black guy in their unit, because it's Korea and their units were not segregated in Korea, as we learned they were in World War II.
Yeah.
We see him at home with his wife or his girlfriend, and she is also a black actress, and they're having just a conversation, like two people would, about these nightmares that he's having. But the other really interesting thing is, right, okay, so there's this famous garden party scene. And I might be skipping ahead a little bit, but like this,
I want to spend some time on this.
I think we should spend some time on this because it is so interesting. I would call it like the set piece of the movie, right? Like it is so interesting, and it's kind of Rashomon style. Like we see it from different perspectives, but we see it
like we see the dream.
We see the dream. And we see the dream where it's a garden party because they've been brainwashed into thinking that they're at a garden party, or no, it's not a garden party. It's like a
women's auxiliary meeting or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a garden club,
Yeah.
a garden club meeting, and someone's standing up talking about hydrangeas or whatever. But actually, they're at this meeting of these psychological people being brainwashed. So we see it in Ben's memory, and we see this lady standing up talking, and we see all the ladies like listening to her, and they're all in their like frilly dresses, they're like, you know, their church dresses or whatever, and they're all white. And then we see it from Al Melvin's perspective, and it's the exact same scene, and it's all the church ladies in their hats and their frilly dresses talking about flowers, but they're all black. They're all black church ladies. And I just thought it was so interesting from what I assume were like white writers and white directors and white producers, that they took the time to think this guy's memory would be different from what Ben Marco's memory is because of his culture and his experiences and his relationships. Not for nothing, like I don't think that people necessarily think that like take the time to think about that, like even today. I remember how impressed I was. Like I really appreciated that.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was so interesting and such good filmmaking.
Well, I think that's a great segue too, because there's other people in the cast, but like they're not super worth talking about.
Yeah.
Kai D as Yen Lo, I thought was very good.
He was very good, yeah.
The only thing I wanted to say about him, and it kind of leads into this as
he
well.
He's actually Asian, I think.
He is, but also he's in most of the movie.
Yeah.
He's in not most of it, he's in a lot of the movie. Because in the story, Yen Lo, the doctor that puts them through all this stuff, he's the one giving the presentation. He's only in that part of their story.
Yeah.
So later in the United States, that's another thing about the book that's worth mentioning, is that it takes place over the course of like 8 years, like a long time.
Yeah.
And one thing the movie has going for it is it takes place over a much shorter period of time.
Yeah.
It really like cuts through everything. You know, we made the joke before about like, what does this have to do with the shark?
Yeah.
The movie screenplay really asks that question a lot. Like, what does this have to do with the shark?
Yeah.
So all the stuff about like Senator Island's like sexual past
in Greenland,
that's gone.
Yeah, like a lot of the sexual stuff is gone, which fare thee well.
A lot of stuff doesn't make it to the movie, and you know what? Pretty much everything that doesn't make it didn't have anything to do with like brainwashing and intrigue, and that's fine.
Yeah,
it loses out a little bit as a satire.
Yeah,
but it remains a really good like political thriller.
Yeah.
Anyway.
They did keep a little bit of the incest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like it's implied. We don't hear anything.
Small amount. Some light incest.
Just some light incest.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about like her stuff with her dad. That's not in the movie at all. But she definitely like
kisses Raymond.
Raymond in a way that is
in a passionate manner.
More than motherly.
Yes. In a way that made me, the mother of a son, feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So you mentioned that this is like the set piece of the movie,
the
centerpiece of it.
Yeah.
This is the way the movie had presented to me, and before I saw it for the first time, and like, oh my God, it holds true. This is one of the best sequences I've ever seen. This is like classic cinema sequences, but the way that Frankenheimer shoots the dream sequence is amazing. And I think it is worth seeing just for this sequence alone. You just happen to have a really fun, good movie around that sequence too.
Yeah.
But you mentioned like the Rashomon thing. It is, I can't imagine how long a scene like this takes to shoot. And I'm so curious about what their process was. Like, I don't know if it was like carefully storyboarded where they knew, okay, for this line of the screenplay, it is going to be all the ladies at the garden party with the soldiers sitting on stage with them.
Yeah.
But for this line, it's going to be Yen Lo at the garden party with all the guys. And for this line, it's going to be the operating theater where they are.
I bet they shot 2 totally separate takes and then cut it together later.
It's more than 2 though, because they mix everything constantly.
Yeah.
It's not just like it's either the reality or it's the dream.
Yeah.
They mix them.
Yeah, because sometimes there's like the generals in with the ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also had to shoot all the dialogue twice. So, like, a general will be asking a question, and it starts out as, like, one of the ladies asking a question.
Yeah.
But the question they're asking isn't about hydrangeas. The question they're asking is about brainwashing and assassinations.
And then there's the third version, which is Al Melvin's version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just the
Attention to detail.
From a filmmaking standpoint, it's incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
Especially because I think this is something that has become kind of a trope now. But I think this establishes the trope.
Yeah. It's one of the most interesting sequences in any film I feel like I've ever seen.
And the best part of it is, like, we're describing it in detail, and I think it's so good. You can still go and watch it for the first time, and I think it will be just as effective, even though we've described what happens.
Yeah.
Because it takes something where you have characters speaking exposition. Yen Lo is telling the audience, I have done these things. It is the definition of exposition. But just by the basic juxtapositions of who is saying it, which actor is saying it, what the context is of them saying it, is it a lady, is it the guy, is it the garden party, just moving through that creates a rhythm in the scene that is so fucking watchable.
Yeah.
And then it allows them to do even more interesting things like the stuff you're talking about with Melvin.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to show it from someone's perspective and you're going to be so subjective about it, be really subjective about it with a different character and show the entire thing in a different way.
Yeah.
But like it has the best scenes in the movie, best moments in the movie.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite ones, and this is something that's in this one, and it also shows up in the remake in 2004, which is, what is it like for the soldiers at this time? And they're not acting like they're prisoners. They're not acting like they've been brainwashed. They're acting like they're bored.
Yeah.
Because they're at
A garden
garden
club.
club.
Yeah, garden club.
And so there's this moment where the guy calls Raymond up, but in order to get up, he has to get past Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just this beautiful little moment between the two of them where he's just like, oh, excuse me. And Ben's like, oh, yeah, of course. Like, it's so normal for them, and they're being so nice. They're being polite because they're in front of all these ladies. There's just so many layers to all of it.
Yeah.
And then where it gets really, really fucking disturbing is when Raymond chokes a guy to death and then shoots another guy in the head.
Yes.
It is so much more disturbing than if we were seeing those things happen in the context of like the operating theater.
Yeah.
But because we're seeing them in the context of the brainwashing, it makes it so much fucking worse.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. How much more do you want to talk about this movie? It's fantastic.
It's really good.
You had a Jaws moment.
Yeah. No, I did. I turned to you. I think it was during this scene.
Yeah.
And I turned to you and I was like, I'm going to ask a question that's going to sound dumb. Do people know how good this movie is? Do people know? And you were like, yeah, everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really works. The pace is fantastic. Like, the thing you can say about Sinatra, because that was one of the cool things about reading it, is at one point you asked me, like, is Ben Marco the main character?
Yeah.
Because Raymond's really presented as the main character.
Yeah, because I asked you who the main character was in the movie, because I was like, I think Ben Marco's the main character of the book. And you were like, yeah, he kind of is in the movie.
Yeah. Like, Raymond is one of the things that the movie does a really good job with is really establishing an emotional connection between the audience and Raymond. I can't speak for everybody watching it.
Yeah.
But I think it really does that. Like, you really get to know who Raymond is. You know what his thoughts are and his fears are. You get to know about him being in love. You get to see it in flashback. Like, he's telling Ben about the time he fell in love with Josie. Like, you really get to know him as a person, and I actually feel sympathy for him.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, even at his best, he's kind of a douchebag.
Yeah.
But, like, he's not a bad person.
Yeah.
And also, we know how terrible his mother is.
Yeah.
So I think we give him the benefit of the doubt that, like, any damage he has, we know where it came from.
Yeah.
And I think the movie does a really good job about that.
Yeah.
I really, like, here's the questions, like, were you sad when Raymond died at the end?
No. I mean,
I was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I guess
that's
what I was
fine.
going to say was, like, the reason that Raymond can't be the main character is by literal definition, he has no agency.
Yes.
He is just a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Ben is active.
Yeah.
Right. Like, he's doing stuff. He's making decisions. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I was sad for Raymond.
That's what I mean.
But, like he got played a bad hand of solitaire.
Kind of literally.
Yeah. But, like, it wasn't like this suspense of like, oh, is he going to die? Is he not going to die? I'm really nervous. What if he dies? Like, clearly he was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was no way he could get out of dying.
Oh, well, so let's talk about the end for a second, because in a large sense, I just want to say this is a super faithful adaptation of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we talked about the plots before of like, here's the plot that the bad guys have, and then here's how the good guys, all of that's in quotes, obviously, like here's the American response to the plot.
Yeah.
That's pretty much in this.
Yeah.
It's all there.
The broad strokes are all there.
Yeah. It eliminates a ton of stuff that doesn't really advance that plot. But it really is a pretty faithful thing, but it makes a pretty big change to the end,
Mm-hmm.
because the big thing is Raymond's actions at the end give him the agency that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, he no longer does the things because Marco told him to. He's doing the things because he wants to.
Yeah, because there's never that scene where Marco's like, okay, here's what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
It's more like you are now freed.
Right. Like, Marco shows him this deck of Queen of Diamonds. That's the one I was talking about. That's like all out of focus. Is like
Mhm.
he's going through a deck one card by card, Queen of Diamonds, Queen of Diamonds, Queen of Diamonds, and he's breaking all these things. He's hoping, and he tells Raymond like, they can't control you anymore. We're tearing it all out. But he definitely gets the impression that it didn't work.
Yeah.
Because Raymond is not calling them. He knows the plot is going forward. He doesn't know what's happening. He manages to get to the convention center while the convention's happening, and he runs all the way up. We see a lot of Frank Sinatra running, lot of it. He looks like he's running for an elevator. He doesn't look like what he's running for is a matter of life and
It
death.
doesn't have a lot of urgency. His run.
No, he manages to get up there just as Raymond shoots his mom, his stepdad, and then himself.
Yes.
But it's his choice to do those things.
Yes.
And there's this moment where like he runs into the booth and Raymond has his Medal of Honor on and turns around to face Ben, and he shoots himself in the head.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing, but it does exactly what I think you made a great point, which is agency.
Yeah.
In a main character.
Mhm.
And I think Raymond has more agency in the movie than he does in the book.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends, and it's really
just
sad.
ends right there.
And it's really funny too, because there's this moment, there's like a little epilogue where Frank Sinatra is talking to Rosie, and there's the moment, there's the thing we were talking about early on where like in the book, Richard Connon is just running through people who have won the Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
And that's basically word for word at the end of the movie.
Yes,
because
that's right. That's
Marco is reading a list of people who've won the Medal of Honor and why they won it
Yep.
to Rosie. And then he basically describes the plot of the movie that says, guy gets brainwashed, shoots a bunch of people, and then himself, Raymond Shaw,
Yeah.
Medal of Honor winner.
Yes.
And then the movie ends.
Yeah.
But it's a really good movie.
It's really good.
And yes, I believe people have been told.
Yeah.
I think people are aware
Well, that's good.
that it's a good movie.
I'm happy for them because it is quite good. But then they remade it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have some background?
All right. In 2004, this movie was remade. It was written by Daniel Pine and Dean Georgaris.
Cool.
Or Georgaris. I'm not sure. It's one of those things where like they haven't done a ton of other stuff, so I don't really have anything to say about them.
Cool.
Most importantly, though, it was directed by Jonathan Demme, who is fucking great, and I'm a big fan.
Mhm.
Here's a list of some things he's done. He's done everything. He got his start in like low budget movies under Roger Corman, who has like had a cameo appearance in all of his movies, and he is in this one as well.
Neat.
I just think it's neat. I think it's great. He did The Silence of the Lambs,
Yeah.
Something Wild,
Yeah.
Married to the Mob,
Mhm.
Philadelphia,
Mhm.
Beloved,
Mhm.
Rachel Getting Married.
Okay.
And inexplicably, this is a movie I never want to see because what it is in my head is too good. Is Ricky and the Flash, the movie where Meryl Streep was like used to be a rock star?
I hear it's. I don't think it's very good.
I don't know. I've heard it's good. I've heard it's bad. I don't
Right.
really know. It's Schrodinger's weird movie at this
Yeah.
point for me. But he's also done other interesting movies. Like he directed Swimming to Cambodia,
Uh-huh.
the Spalding Gray movie.
Yeah.
He directed A Master Builder with a friend of the pod, Wallace Shawn,
Friend of the pod.
a couple of years ago. And he does concert movies. He did like Neil Young's Heart of Gold. He did a movie with Justin Timberlake, and he directed what I believe is the best concert movie of all time, The Talking Heads Stop Making Sense.
Yes.
It is incredible. Jonathan Demme is nothing if not interesting.
Uh-huh.
Sadly, he passed away in 2017. And I do think that Jonathan Demme brings a lot to the table that makes the movie interesting.
Mm-hmm. But
I don't know if it makes the movie good.
well, let me ask you this. How many movies have we I guess I can't 100% speak to it because how many movies have we watched for the podcast? And I don't think it's that many that I literally had to cover my eyes.
Well, yeah. So this is a horror guy.
Yeah.
And he does not shy away from some of the grotesque stuff.
Yeah.
So what were the things that made you look away? So
Just any like the strangulation was
Yeah.
really graphic.
very graphic.
Yeah, I didn't like that. The shooting was
The shooting in the
okay.
head. You mean the shooting at the end, or when he shoots the guy in the head?
When he shoots the guy in the head,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't love that. The shooting at the end was okay.
Yeah.
It was. I think it's more the strangulation was, and like the sort of more torture-y stuff is the stuff that I can't really watch. I don't like that at all.
There was also the stuff in the middle where you thought they were going to do animal cruelty.
I did, yeah.
Which never really
came
ends
to
up
pass.
happening.
Yeah, that was. Thank God for that.
Oh, but what about when Denzel Washington cut the thing out of his shoulder?
Like that. Ooh, yeah, just like body horror stuff. Ooh. But I mean, we can talk about that in a second because it was also a plot point that I did not like. So maybe we'll come to that in a minute.
Let me make a grand pronouncement about this movie, if it's okay with you.
Oh, and he also bit it out of someone else's shoulder.
Yeah, Denzel Washington.
Yeah, I couldn't look at that either.
Okay,
Ooh.
we'll talk about who's in it. We'll talk about all that stuff. And,
Okay.
you know, whether it's good or not, and what's good and what's bad. Blah, 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 blah. I think this movie had the potential to be a truly fantastic and interesting adaptation of The Manchurian Candidate and a political thriller for our time.
Yeah.
And also satire. I think it was held back by just how much of a stereotypical political thriller it ended up being.
Yeah.
Like, I think so much of this movie does not work for me, and so much of it revolves around, like, the actual through line, the plot, like the bad guy's plot.
Yeah.
Like, we have Meryl Streep taking over the Angela Lansbury role. I didn't find her interesting in this movie.
Mm-mm.
Like,
her part wasn't big enough to be interesting.
Yeah.
She was barely in it, really.
And she was
She was one-dimensional.
Really one-dimensional. Like, that's the thing about Angela Lansbury doing it, is that you know she's the antagonist, but she's at least an interesting antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's the big thing. Like, they still have to be interesting. You could tell that Meryl Streep is the antagonist. I just didn't find her interesting at all.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a lot in the movie that I think falls into that trap where, like, I just don't think the screenplay was there.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of updates
Yeah.
to the screenplay. One, it's set in like modern times.
Yep. Definitely post 9/11.
The current day is post 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's dated very specifically to Kuwait. So the action that they saw was in 1991.
Yeah.
It is now like 12 years later. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a good long time, probably in reference to Denzel's age, I would imagine.
I would say more Liev Schreiber's age than anything else.
Well, but the funny thing is, like,
so Denzel Washington plays Marco, Liev Schreiber plays Raymond Shaw.
yeah.
Meryl Streep plays his mom.
I mean, who I looked it up. Meryl Streep is 17 years older than Liev Schreiber. So
Yep.
actually the perfect age to play his mom in this movie. So I think this is a good time to talk about Sir not appearing in this film, because who is not a character?
Johnny.
Yeah.
Senator Iselin is not in it.
Yeah.
They basically, I think you made the good point when we were watching it that they basically took 3 characters and combined them into 2.
Yeah.
But they didn't take like 2 and combine into 1.
Yeah.
So like there was the mom and there's the senator and there's Raymond. In this, Raymond has now run for office. He is a he's a representative.
He's a representative.
And his mom is a senator.
Yeah.
And Johnny's just not there.
Yeah. But what his mom is trying to do is make Raymond the vice presidential candidate.
Yes.
Which he is.
Right.
He has become so. So they've also changed it so that the big set piece at the end is not the convention, it's election night. Like, they've just won the election.
Yeah.
It was actually funny. We were watching this and they were talking, and there's all this, like, back room Washington political stuff going on. And I turned to, and like someone said something, and I turned to you and I was like, wait, are they Democrats?
They're clearly Democrats.
They're clearly Democrats.
But never said.
No.
It's actually distracting the lengths the movie goes to not say what party they are.
Yeah, and even at one point, like, Meryl Streep's character was being interviewed on TV, and her name was on the subtitle, and it was like Senator whatever Prentice Shaw, and it just said Virginia. And I said, it would always, if you're interviewing a senator, it always says like R Virginia or D Virginia.
Yeah.
It never just says Virginia. So they're clearly going out of their way to not identify the party, which I think is cowardly.
I think so.
Yeah.
It just took me out of it.
Yeah.
Like and maybe it's timing. Like, we literally just lived through a national election.
Yeah.
So to see them show a more ambiguous, more theatrical version of a national election, but one that is so unwilling to show specifics or get realistic. It's a very unrealistic depiction of an election.
Well, yes. I mean, it is a rosy picture of an election. I mean, not ignoring the fact that the guy gets shot there's a shooting, but like it's like here it is 10 p.m. on election night and with 70% of the vote. It was like, oh, you sweet summer child.
Well,
Is that how it used to be?
It is how it used to be sometimes. But like, who are they running against?
Who knows?
You have no idea.
We have no idea.
You never find out who they're running against.
What is the other person's like platform? We don't. What platform are they running on? We have no. It's just like make things better platform.
Yeah,
we have no idea.
And that's one of the things that's so good about the original novel and the original movie is that like Eleanor and her husband, their whole thing is communism.
Yeah,
it's all about McCarthyism. It's all about witch hunts. It's a very, very tangible thing that we as an audience know about. But in this one, it's so much more ambiguous. Like, we don't really know what their problem is.
Yeah.
She keeps talking about how their political rivals are like spineless, and how her son would be a great candidate because he's a GD war hero.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't hit the way, it doesn't resonate the way it does in the originals at all.
Yeah. And one of the things that I wrote down was I felt like the pacing of this movie was weird. Like it's just everything felt like so slow, and it felt like they were talking about the same things so many times from so many angles, so many different people saying the same things. And I wonder if that ties back to what you're saying, which is that everything was so non-specific that it felt that way.
Yeah.
Like no one was like, okay, here's what's going on, here's what we're gonna do, here's the thing, here we go. Like I loved in the original movie, the 62 movie, and I turned to you and said this at one point, is like Ben figures out that Raymond is brainwashed. He's got a trigger that's someone saying to him, why don't you pass the time by playing a little solitaire, and that the trigger card is the Queen of Diamonds. He figures that all out within a cut, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I figured it out, and now we cut, and I'm working with the FBI, and everybody's on the same page. Everybody believes me. We are just going from here. And I turned to you and I was like, I love when people just figure stuff out, and they can just work with that information, and you don't have half an hour of someone trying to convince someone of something. I hate that. That's what makes things feel really slow to me, because it's like, I, the audience, I'm already sold. I've seen the thing happen. I believe it to be true. I don't want to watch an interminable amount of time of someone on screen trying to convince someone else of it, and that's what I felt like this movie was. As opposed to the original.
It really leans into the whole paranoia thing.
Yeah.
Where like in the original and in the novel, like Ben is definitely showed to go through some shit. Like he definitely goes through a rough patch, but the person who's crazy is Al Melvin.
Yeah.
He's the one who's really gone through some shit.
Yeah.
And in this one, they've just amped them both up.
Yeah, so Al is like really scary.
Certifiable.
Yeah.
Like terrifying.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Wright, by the way.
Yeah.
Super, super good.
Yeah, yeah.
And Denzel Washington, like, he has gone off the rails as well.
He's quite ill.
Yeah, it's really leaned into the paranoia part of it. Where like in the original, like let's talk about the movie, like Frank Sinatra doesn't really do anything that crazy other than maybe beating up Chun Jin.
Right.
That seems a little crazy to some people.
Yeah.
That he just opened the door and was like, oh, this Korean, fuck you, and just started beating the shit out of this guy. Had a big old bad fight with him.
Yeah.
But like in this one, you mentioned it, like he finds a little tracker, he finds something in his shoulder, and then he cuts it out and then immediately loses it.
Yeah.
For reasons that we'll get to.
Yeah. For reasons.
And then he goes and talks to Raymond at like his political headquarters in New York, and ends their conversation by biting Raymond on the shoulder and biting out the tracker.
Yes.
And hiding it in his mouth.
Yes.
And of course, most of the people in this world, their reaction to that is, so you've done a crazy thing, sir.
Yes.
That is a very crazy thing you've done.
Yes.
And you are in trouble.
Yes.
And you are arrested.
Yes.
And you are also, you are on leave as well.
Yes. Yeah. And the fact that they let him go and it's like, oh, he's not going to press charges, we'll let you go. Like, I actually, now that I think about it, I think that an assassination attempt on a political candidate is a federal crime. I don't think you can just like not press charges and everything's okay. I don't think it works that way. Like that's a very, very, very bad thing to do, and you should not do it.
It doesn't feel super well thought out.
Yeah.
So before we move on from this, because I'm not sure if I made my point, was there anything else you wanted to say about like the tracker?
Yeah, I will
like
just
that?
say, like, I mean, you've sort of now alluded to it, and I will just come out and say, I think they made a change to the plot of this movie that completely ruins the movie. Like, I think it is ruined.
Bold words.
And if the book and the original movie taught us anything, it's that so much destruction can be accomplished purely by the force of a mind. A mind can be turned against itself. It can be forced to do things that it wouldn't ordinarily do. That it is literally 100% a psychological thriller, right? In this version, like, that wasn't good enough for them, I guess. They had to make it something physical. And what they made it was that, oh, we've all been implanted with these devices, these tiny, like, trackers, like the size of a grain of rice, basically, like in the head and the shoulder. That,
like, the one in the head controls the mind, and the one in the shoulder is like a tracker or
something like this. Yeah. Not 100% clear.
You don't find out.
Yeah.
Totally.
But, like, so much of the plot revolves around, I think they put something in me. I think they put something in me. Oh my gosh, I've dug it now out of myself, but I lost the proof. So now I have to find one in someone else so I can take it to a scientist, and I have this physical proof. Whereas, I don't know, the original, like, no one ever asked for physical proof. It was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And we're just all going to proceed on this assumption because you've made your case convincingly. But there was so much about, I have to physically find something to prove my case, to prove that I'm not crazy. And it just made it a completely different movie. Like, I just feel like they maybe thought it was just kind of like modernizing it a little bit, but I think they completely changed the point of the movie.
Okay, so two things.
Yes.
If I may.
Yes, you may.
One, I actually think it works against what they're doing by doing what you're talking about, because if you want to tell a story about paranoia and about hopelessness in the face of, like, giant because in this, one other thing we didn't say.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, they don't go to Manchuria in this. So this whole thing was orchestrated by Manchurian Global, which is a giant hedge fund that has tons of companies and stuff like that.
An evil business.
Yes. So instead of Yen Lo doing it, it's this British guy.
It's an evil corporation.
Yeah. So there's that. If you want to tell a story about going up against this giant force, it does make it more terrifying if you literally can't get physical proof of the thing you're talking about.
Yes.
Like, that makes the paranoia way more worse, right? And so I don't know why they added it, because it just takes away from that. The second thing is technology.
Yeah.
It's something we're still dealing with, but it was something that I think was very clear in, like, the mid to late 90s and, like, the early 2000s. That kind of time period, technology was treated like magic. And increasingly, I think it's better now, but I just feel like a lot of these movies were written by people who were a little more old school and were writing about things they didn't understand. And they weren't doing research to figure out the things that they didn't understand. And technology just becomes this thing. Computers can do anything.
Yeah.
You know, they're magic.
A hell of a thing.
You know?
What a time to be alive.
Right. And, like, it doesn't ring true because they did no research.
Yeah.
It's not based on anything. It's just, we put an implant in his head and now we can control his mind. They never actually take that step to make the science fiction a little more realistic and a little more palatable by explaining the science of it.
Yeah.
It's treated the same way as brainwashing is. But because they've made it technological, I actually think it certainly distanced me from what was happening.
Yeah. I mean, like, not for nothing. I think it's less interesting.
Yeah.
But B, it brings in just this whole, like, body horror element of it, which I guess is maybe the appeal, but I personally found it horrifying. I did not enjoy it. Like, I had to literally cover my eyes, which is, the definition of something that takes you out of a movie.
I think I was way more ambivalent about the body horror in this one. I wasn't against it or for it, but I definitely was watching going, like, this is well executed body horror.
Yeah, just like the flashbacks when everyone's all bloody and beat up and there's, like, stuff going in and out of their bodies, and it just was so gross. I really hated it.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I get that. But also, we'll never watch Silence of the Lambs together.
I know that.
Yeah.
I don't even like when you do the voice. Please don't do it.
I won't.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Even though Ted Levine is in this movie.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh.
Ted Levine was one of the army guys. He's the guy that's not Miguel Ferrer.
Ah.
Yeah.
Great.
For everyone that knows, Ted Levine is the guy in the Silence of the Lambs that goes, it puts the lotion on its skin and puts it in the basket.
I definitely asked you not to do the voice.
I love you. So
I definitely asked you not to.
So, okay. So technology is treated as magic in this thing and it takes away everything. I love you. We're fine. You're okay.
Just keep going.
Just want to make sure people know what I'm talking about. But like by extension, there was an example I had from the movie of this, which is like a whole bunch of things wrapped into one. It's poor exposition, poorly thought out characters, combined with this technology as magic. Let's talk about Delp for a second.
Delp.
Remember Delp?
No, I don't remember
Bruno
Delp.
Ganz?
Oh, yeah. What was he? I remember him. Who was he?
This is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Who the fuck is this guy?
I don't know.
So he's this guy, Bruno Ganz, making his second appearance on the show. He was in Werner Herzog's Dracula.
Never heard him speak English before.
He speaks really good English.
Really good English. Yeah.
Like not only speaks English well, but like speaks it in an interesting way.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed by people who can act in multiple languages.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly something to be able to act in your native language and speak in another language. But to be able to act in both languages convincingly,
But
I
he
think is amazing.
sounded like an American doing an accent. Like it didn't even sound like, oh, this guy has an accent and is not a native English speaker. Like he really, really embraced the character. Anyway, I thought he was very good.
And if any of you...
Literally Hitler.
If any of you under the age of 30 doesn't know who Bruno Ganz is, you definitely do, because he's the guy who plays Hitler in Downfall, which is a clip... You've seen the clip of him...
Literally Hitler, this guy.
You've seen the clip of him as Hitler finding out that they're losing the war. You have seen this clip before. So... he is a scientist that Ben Marco, Denzel Washington, knows. He like helped him get out of Albania.
Yeah, I do remember the thing about Albania.
Like he's a scientist and he experiments on primates, and he's Denzel's guy in the chair. He's the guy he goes to say like, you got to explain to me what's going on. You got to help me with technology. I don't know from computers, but you know all about this stuff, man. And he's a really cool character who has really cool things to say and has very philosophical things to say about like what is the mind and what is reality and technology, and brainwashing is all horse shit. Like he's a cool character and he's kind of fun, but you never find out who the fuck he is.
Yeah, and he has no connection to anything outside of like the fact that Denzel goes to see him like 2 or 3 times.
And also, what's the point of him going back and finding out that Delp's whole place has been cleaned out?
I don't know.
Like, is it clear who did that? Did
No.
Delp just do it, or did the U.S. government do it?
I
It's
don't
just
know.
it's establishing ambiguity for ambiguity's sake, which is something that I fucking hate.
Yeah.
He's only there to explain some technical things to Ben Marco, but like other people could have done that. He does end up hooking up with the FBI.
Yeah.
And it could have happened that way, but instead we have to have this cool character
Yeah.
who serves no purpose.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it. Even though I liked him when he was there, he served no purpose.
Yeah. Well, continuing on, something that you just mentioned is that Eugenie is the FBI.
Yeah. So
It turns out.
this is the thing I was talking about before with Rosie, that if you're going to fix Rosie, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to eliminate her, which, as I said, is bad because you're just eliminating another female character. But the second thing you can do is you can write her better. And I think they did that in this one, because the way that she and Marco hook up is exactly the same as it is in the book and it is in the 1962 movie.
Yeah. He's just like on the train. She's like, you don't look well. He's like, I am not well. And she's like, I find you intriguing, and here's my phone number.
And also we've met because I work in the supermarket that you shop in all the time.
Right.
It never felt right that Rosie was so into Ben, but it does make sense if she's a goddamn government spook.
Yes.
Who's it's her job to be into him.
Yes.
To get close to him. That makes it make sense. And then halfway through, we find out the truth.
Well, and then there's this thing that's like there's a camera in her bathroom that he sees, and he gets all weird about it. But like everything makes sense if it turns out she's FBI.
Yeah, and he finds out that she's been taping their conversations.
Yeah.
He lost the tracker in his arm because she broke into the bathroom when he was doing it, and he dropped it down the sink.
Yeah.
And I only saved it because it had to do with Rosie.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like Rosie, I would say in the third act of this movie, Rosie kind of becomes the protagonist.
Well, yeah, I was actually literally about to say she actually in the third act is Ben, and he's
Raymond.
He's Raymond because he's going to do this thing. Sort of ambiguous as to whether or not she knows that he's going to do this thing. And she's the one either trying to manage him or stop it. And sure enough, in this, again, excruciatingly long drawn out sequence, because I don't know, maybe it was just me because I was coming off of reading the book and seeing the other movie. It was very obvious what he was going to do. And I felt like that sequence of like cutting back and forth and back and forth and back and forth was so long with Raymond, because he had this confrontation with Raymond, and Raymond is like, essentially, I know they're inside my head and there's nothing I can do about it. He shoots Raymond and his mother and then himself, but he lives.
No, he doesn't shoot himself. He's about to, but then she shoots him in the shoulder.
She shoots him in the shoulder. I was picturing him being shot in the shoulder, but I forgot. Yes. So yes, he does kill Raymond and his mother
with one shot.
With one shot, very impressively. And then the FBI is able to like cover it up and make it seem like he's the assassin was a different person.
They find out that it was Manchurian Global that was behind it, so they end up, even though Manchurian Global is guilty, they end up framing them by saying that, like, oh, the guy that did the shooting was someone they had hired in the past, and like it's a whole thing at the end.
Yeah, it was
like,
a little bit confusing actually because it all happened kind of fast.
Yeah, it happened kind of fast, and it's like everything's tied up with a bow a little too nicely.
Yeah, and they like took him back to the place where all the brainwashing had originally happened, and he was like walking them through it and all this stuff.
He definitely has a thing like I can't remember exactly what it is, but the very last line of the movie is Denzel Washington basically saying that like everyone who goes to war comes back a victim or something like that.
Yeah,
I'm butchering it at this point. That's like barely even a paraphrase, but it's something about how like everyone is a victim, like who is forced to fight in wars that don't need fighting, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's okay. It doesn't sit that well. Like it doesn't. It's not handled well.
Yeah,
it's not that there's nothing interesting about it. It's just not handled well.
Yeah,
and that was my biggest problem with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do want to say I've said everybody else's name. Kimberly Elise is the actress that plays Rosie.
Yes,
I just want to say that hers.
Yeah,
I thought she was really good.
No, she was good.
Like the scene where she finally confronts Ben because he's like attacking her.
Yeah,
in her
he like
apartment.
breaks into her apartment at night and is like choking her.
Yeah, and she pulls a gun on him.
Well, he says like, you have two choices. You can like, I could kill you, or we can go to the feds together, because he thinks like she's like spying on him, and she's like, I am the feds, and it's pretty badass.
Yeah.
She like pulls a gun on him.
She's pretty cool after that.
Yeah,
and then he's got his scene with Raymond, and we're gonna finish up here in a second.
Yeah,
because there's one big thing we still need to talk about, which is like two glaring omissions from this movie.
Okay.
And they kind of relate to this last scene. So she and Raymond's handlers have orchestrated a meeting between him and Ben.
Yeah.
And they're having this meeting, and Ben says, you don't have to do this. We can help you. And this is where we have the scene that you were talking about.
He's like
where
upset. He's really upset.
This is like, you can't think that I can get out of this. They're deeper than you think.
Yeah.
And the worst part is you think that it's just me.
Yeah.
And he gets a phone call, and it's his mom, and he hands the phone over to Ben, and she uses his trigger because now he has a trigger, just like Raymond does. And that's where the third act starts.
Yes.
And we move towards our denouement.
Yes.
And she gives him, we don't know what the instructions are, but he basically disappears. And so Rosie runs into the room trying to find him, and she can't find him anywhere. And so he has given them the slip, and he gets to the convention, and he's got the gun and all that kind of stuff. And
can we talk about the trigger?
Like, yeah, we've got to talk about the trigger, and we have to talk about the garden party.
Okay.
Because these are two things that are fundamentally changed. And I want to be clear about the trigger and the garden party. They are not technically integral to the plot.
Yeah.
They aren't. The plot is the plot. Things happen. You can have the trigger be something else and still have a trigger. You can have the brainwashing sequence be something other than a garden party and still have it be a brainwashing sequence.
Yeah, you can. But I feel like this is a question that I bring up on this podcast all the time, which is two different things. A, why would you change something from... It happens a lot with names. Like, why would you just change a name from one neutral name to another? I don't understand. They are equal, so why wouldn't you just leave it the original name? That's something I never understand, but it's like, it's not negative. It's just, why would you make such a neutral change when you don't have to? But it's
like an unforced error.
It's like an unforced error, right? But it's like this, the second one, which is I think what we're talking about, is like, why would you make a change that doesn't actually have that much resonance as far as what the thing is, but it actually makes things stupider? Why would you make that change when you have something that makes sense? Why would you change it to something that does not make sense?
So you're talking about the trigger,
I'm talking about the trigger.
Okay, so in the original, his trigger is, why don't you pass the time by playing a game of solitaire?
Yes, and it's very specific.
He goes through the deck, and they have to wait until he gets to the Queen of Diamonds, and that puts him under and makes him susceptible to suggestion.
Yes.
That is his trigger.
Yes.
What is his trigger in this?
His name.
Just his name.
Just his name.
You just got to say his name the right way.
And it's just, the funny thing is, like, in the original, there's a whole sequence where he accidentally gets triggered by a sequence of events that would seem very unusual. Someone happened to say the trigger phrase, and there was a deck of cards handy, and so he started playing solitaire, and the guy accidentally gave him an instruction.
Yep.
But in this case, it's like, it's just his name.
Yep.
And there's also no plot in which he gets accidentally triggered.
Yeah.
And why would the trigger just be his name?
Yeah. But it's a name in a very specific way.
I
Like, she does say,
understand that.
like, what is it? Private Shaw? Sergeant Shaw?
Yeah, it's like you have to say it 3 times,
to
and
say
once
it-
is the middle name. It's
Yeah.
like in a specific way.
Right. And then she does the same thing to Marco.
Yes.
And you know that it's happening because that's the trigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the thing I was getting to, is like, it's not integral to the plot that it's solitaire, but so much of the personality of the story comes from choices like that.
Yeah. And then if you're going to make it something simple like that, have a scene where he accidentally gets triggered because someone on the news just happens to say his name in that sequence.
Yeah.
Like, have a scene like that. I don't get it. I do not get it.
It's
Anyway.
poor choice.
Yes.
But then that brings us to the garden party. And I think we can finish up with this.
Yes.
Because this is just another example of, I just don't know why they would change it to what they changed it to.
Yeah.
Because it's the centerpiece of the original movie.
Yeah.
You have this entire sequence where the brainwashing scene is intercut with scenes of the garden club.
Yeah.
And look, I can understand why they wouldn't do this, because it is a classic scene of American cinema.
We're changing it.
You know, because how could you live up to it?
Yes.
If you do the same thing, you're just going to be accused of copying it. So you've got to go do your own thing.
Yeah.
But what they chose to do was nothing.
Yeah.
They're like, they did something in the original. We're going to do nothing.
We're just going to show you a bunch of torture.
Yeah. So, like, the dream is just them being tortured.
Yeah.
The way they were actually being tortured.
Yes.
We get a, like, pretty real, what is implied is a very realistic version of what happened. And there's, like, little moments within the scene that I think work. Like, I think the way that Ben and Raymond are reacting to each other are great because they're so natural and they're so like, no, we're not being brainwashed. Everything is totally normal that's happening right now. But they're just in the exam room. And the big change that's happened here is that Raymond doesn't kill both the guys. He strangles one guy, and then Ben shoots the other guy.
Yes.
So they're both being triggered at this point.
Yes.
And it's just them in the lab.
Yeah.
And there's nothing. It's no longer interesting.
Yes. Yes. It's remove the personality, as you say.
Yeah. And I get why you wouldn't do it, but what they've done, I don't understand how they went through the entire process of writing it, saying like, okay, well, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to do nothing.
Yeah.
And then they get to pre-production. They had to do all the set design, and they had to think again, okay, what can we do to make it interesting?
Nothing.
Oh, right, nothing. And then they were shooting it and thought, what can we do to make it interesting? We'll do nothing. And then they were editing it. You could still fix it in the edit. You could go back and shoot other things. You could do insert shots. You could do anything. And they decided, what can we do to make it interesting? Nothing. And then we're left with just this limp reveal. And it's just nothing.
Like the torture that we've been seeing the whole time, that happened.
Yep.
Like, oh, okay. We didn't think it didn't. Honestly, we're pretty sold on it.
Mm-hmm. There's
anyway.
stuff. I still feel like there's stuff that works in this movie. I think the performances are largely good. I think Meryl Streep is just kind of doing Meryl Streep.
Yeah, she's just doing her thing. She's doing her Meryl Streep thing.
And I don't think it works that well. I think Denzel Washington is fantastic.
Yeah.
I actually think he and Liev Schreiber are both amazing.
They're
in
good
this movie.
together. I think they have good, like, they play off each other well. Like, they have good chemistry.
I think Liev Schreiber was inspired casting. I think he's perfect the same way Lawrence Harvey was perfect. Like, I think other people could have played Ben Marco, even though Denzel's great. But I think Liev Schreiber was born to play this. I think he was really, really good.
Yeah.
And the rest of the cast is okay.
Yeah.
They're okay.
Yeah.
It bummed me out. I like Jonathan
You
Demme.
liked Kimberly Elise. You thought
She's
she was
good.
Yeah.
I thought she was good, but even then, I actually wish they had gone further with her role.
Yeah.
I wish they had made her even more interesting than they made her.
Yeah.
And we're left with
this.
The Manchurian Candidate 2004, a movie that I don't think is like super well remembered. I think people were like, it's pretty good.
It's a sad balloon.
It's okay. It's okay.
All right. Do you want to wrap this up?
Yeah. So, 1962 movie. Do you think they cared about the novel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Do you think they were successful?
Yes, I do.
2004. Do you think they cared about the source material?
I do not. No.
I think they went back and they did read the source material.
I mean,
There was like specific things that were in the book that were not in 1962 that were called out in the 2004
I
version.
would believe someone was given a treatment of it or even read it, but I don't think they were passionate about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no real evidence to say that they were. I want them to be, but yeah, I don't think we have the evidence for that.
Yeah.
Was it successful?
No.
Like,
I don't think so, no.
No.
We didn't like it.
No.
It wasn't fun. It wasn't interesting, and we liked the other two way better.
Parts of it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad, but
that's my big
I don't
thing.
think it was successful
It's one of
as
those
an adaptation.
heartbreaking movies that like could have been really good, and it ended up being okay.
Honestly, like as an adaptation, changing the brainwashing to technology alone, I would say disqualifies it for me because it's
being successful.
As being successful.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, there we are.
Yeah.
Politics. Maybe after this we can put politics behind us a little bit.
Okay.
Hopefully. Well, this has been Adapt or Perish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adaptorperishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways that you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. And third, we are on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We have a special fan community on Slack that's been super fun. We have a bonus show that we do between episodes of this show, and we would love for you to join us there if you would like to support us in that way.
I'm going to go pass the time by playing a little solitaire.
I have been activated. I don't know how to follow that up. Please don't. Please don't.
Okay,
I have removed the Queen of Diamonds, everybody. We are safe. Don't worry about Ariel. She's not going to be fully activated.
Fantastic.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.